Going back to 1983, quite a few one-hit wonders in 1983. There was a few of them. I remember there was their Commissar by After the Fire. That was in early 1983. Taco. Does anybody remember putting on the wrist that 1920 sounding record? Sounds like Al Jolson coming right back and doing the time warp right back into the 80s. And then Taco putting on the wrist. That was one of the most brilliant records that ever came out. Summer of 1983. Peter Shanley's Major Tom, which actually is coming up later on this fancy playlist. One hit wonder in fall of 83. And this song at number 15, up one from 16, In a Big Country by Big Country. In a Big Country, a one hit wonder here in the States. But in England, these guys had about 12, 13 top 40 hits in England going into the early 90s. Four-man band from Scotland, Stuart Adamson, lead vocalist and chief songwriter. They had about 3 or 4 top 10 hits in England. Fields of Fire, their first top 10, went to number 10. And then In a Big Country came out in 1983 in England as well as here in the States. Although, interestingly enough, In a Big Country only went to number 17 in England. Not one of their biggest hits. Number 17 here in the States, but boy, they made the most out of it here in the States. This is an arena-sized and all-encompassing record. And you got the blaring, and it's not bagpipes. It sounds like bagpipes, but it's blaring Celtic guitars just rolling across the melodic landscape of this record. And I think big, seriously, In a Big Country. I'm thinking blues. I'm thinking Big Sky Country, Ring by Mountains. It's such a mountainous sounding records. I mean, a mountainous. A mountainous sounding record, mountains and blue sky. And here, if you distill this song, if you take this song and blow it up into a visual picture, that's what I think of. The blue sky ringed by mountains, huge mountains, snow-capped mountains, and you hear that voice, and the big country dreams come true. All right, so much for the epiphany. Now let's get to some of the brass tacks of this record. And Stuart Adamson wrote this record. And A Big Country was originally called Stay Alive. But their booking agent, his name was John Giddings, he suggested a name change. Call it In a Big Country. Because it sounds like a big country, produced by Steve Lillywhite. When Steve Lillywhite, up-and-coming producer in the late 70s, early 80s, he had produced some stuff by the Psychedelic Furs, including Pretty in Pink. When Steve Lillywhite heard the demo of this record, he teared up. That's the story. Might be a legend, but it's a powerful record. He did make some changes to the demo, though, to the song. For one thing, you know that very often the chorus is behind the first verse. There's the first chorus, second verse chorus. But in this case, there was Steve Lillywhite. There's the first verse, second verse, and then he inserted the chorus right there after the second verse, and added in the Celtic guitar riffs, the guitar breaks in this record. And he had Stuart Adamson, the lead singer. He had him sing at if I got it correctly, maybe a higher pitch or higher octave in the bridge of this record. Steve Lillywhite, who later, this guy was big. Oh yeah, hell yeah. Steve Lillywhite went on and produced multi-platinum albums by the Dave Matthews Band in the 90s. Including the album Crash, which had one of my favorite Dave Matthews records, Too Much. Had that mid-70s soul, Stevie Wonder, funky soul sound to it. Yeah. But let's go back to Big Country. We're in 1983 now. Steve Lillywhite, I almost forgot to mention this. I'm sure you remember the Joshua Tree by U2. He mixed a few of the records on that U2 album, including Where the Streets Have No Name. Oh God, awesome record, 1987. And Without You, he mixed that too. Well, bottom line, Steve Lillywhite, he produced this record, produced this album by Big Country. That was a big break for him, no doubt about that. And, well, that's it. As Bugs Bunny would say, that's it, folks. I think that's what he said. Well, that's what I just said. And a Big Country by Big Country at number 15 on my fantasy playlist of November 20th, 1983.